Video contains violent content, details that are not suitable for common perception. Please consider before watching. Chapter 67. Mok Jae-eun revealing himself from the chains. Gugu. His appearance was not ordinary. Could it be that he was devoured by the completed goo poison? Chong Ryong spoke with a voice tinged with anger, aiming her long pipe. Foolish thing. Were you finally devoured? At that question, Mok Jae-eun's lips twitched, then he opened his mouth while looking at Chong Ryong. I wasn't devoured, I devoured it. At those words, Chong Ryong's expression momentarily went blank. Just by hearing his distinct way of speaking, she could clearly tell that his body hadn't been taken over and it was Mok Jae-eun himself. Why are you like that? Did you really devour that thing? At her question, Mok Jae-eun shrugged and replied. As you can see. Truly astounding. Even if he had multiple lives, the probability of failure was higher. But this ignorant kid finally managed to do it. It's just that I feel like my stomach will burst from overeating. Your stomach will burst? Yes. I think I ate a bit too much. Somehow, after pushing and pulling with the creature, he succeeded in absorbing its chi. But a problem arose here. He clearly absorbed the chi, but the resentment and death chi the creature possessed was incomparable to the amount he had received until now. At Mok Jae-eun's words, she frowned. Come to think of it, this guy is human. Chong Ryong realized her mistake. Having been a vengeful spirit for over 100 years, her thinking from when she was human must have become rigid. The human body could be considered a type of vessel. Vessels have a limit to what they can handle. More important than accepting internal energy is expanding the size of that vessel through enlightenment. However, Mok Jae-eun lacked enlightenment. He hadn't grasped the method of utilizing chi as a top expert, and even though he had learned the secret of the moon sword technique, which could be called the secret of the peerless swordless technique, his understanding of the sword was low. If he had gained enlightenment step by step through the normal path, the limit of internal energy he could accept would have naturally increased as well. But now Mok Jae-eun was not like that at all. Chong Ryong spoke with a somewhat serious voice. Expel the chi you can't handle right now. Pardon? Too much is as bad as too little. If you accept chi to a level your body can't handle, it will instead become poison to you, kid. Is that so? Yes. Then it would be better to pass on the excess chi. What? As she was puzzled, Mok Jae-eun bent his waist and searched for something on the ground. She wondered what he was looking for, and Mok Jae-eun exclaimed, "Oh," and lifted up what he found. It was none other than a skull with the face and forehead area shattered and in a mess. Strangely, an old talisman was attached to the skull's head, and although it seemed quite old, it was curious how it was maintained without damage. It must be because of the spell power. He guessed it was probably that. Of course, that guess was correct. Mok Jae-eun removed the old talisman with the word, chain, written on it from the skull he was holding. And, what are you doing now? Not only is he not expelling it, but why is he infusing chi into that thing? In her ghostly eyes she saw an entity crouching inside that skull. It was a vengeful spirit hiding in fear. Why are you giving chi to that? Before Chong Ryong could finish her words, as death chi was already injected into the skull, the vengeful spirit inside reacted. Gugu. Like dried seafood regaining vitality when water is added, the crouching vengeful spirit absorbed the death chi and soon revealed itself. It was none other than Claik. A girl with a cold impression wearing thin chains like clothes all over her body revealed herself. Judging from her youthful face, she looked to be at most around 15 years old. A peculiar thing was that half of her hair had turned white, making it truly half white. Seeing her appearance, Chong Ryong frowned and said, "What? It was a wench?" Hearing those words, the girl bit her lips tightly, then suddenly shouted, "Who are you calling a wench? This young master is a man." What? At the girl's words, Chong Ryong raised an eyebrow. Then she muttered in a tone of disbelief, "You're joking, right?" No matter how she looked at it, it was a wench. However, this young master is a man. The girl, who was getting heated claiming to be a man, was stared at intently by Chong Ryong, who then reached out her hand. Then the girl's body was forcibly sucked into Chong Ryong's hand. Swish. Puck. Chong Ryong, grasping the girl's neck, spoke in a somewhat chilly voice. How dare a young thing raise her voice to an adult? Do you want to die so badly? The girl was momentarily speechless at Chong Ryong's tremendous, overwhelming presence. It seemed that vengeful spirits could sense each other's rough grade, and the girl could also guess it from the qi emanating from Chong Ryong. However, she didn't seem to be the type to yield easily as expected. Even if I look like this, it's been about 15 years since I died, so in age I'm 33. Chong Ryong's hand tightened. She pulled the girl close and said, "If you don't want to hear young thing from me, come back after living 100 more years." At Chong Ryong's words, the girl's expression stiffened. Just from what she said, the girl could guess how many years she had lived and what her grade was. Chong Ryong turned her head towards Mok Jaeyoung and said, "Why did you revive this one by giving her qi? You should have just killed her. She seemed useful." Useful? At Mok Jaeyoung's words, the girl frowned. Then she said to Mok Jaeyoung, "Who are you calling useful right now? A mere human? Grip. Who told you to open your mouth?" The girl, who couldn't speak while being suppressed by Chong Ryong's grip, wasn't actually suffocating, but it felt like it. At this, Mok Jaeyoung held the skull he was holding with both hands. Then, showing it to the girl, he said, "This is your head, right?" The girl glanced at Chong Ryong. At this, Chong Ryong nodded with a displeased expression. Then the girl answered, "Yes, it is, so just leave it alone." "Why? What's there to gain by messing with a dead person's bones?" "Something to gain? There is." "What?" Crack. At that moment, cracks appeared on the girl's skull. Seeing this, the girl panicked and reached out her hand, shouting, "Stop." "Why?" "No. Why are you trying to break that?" Unlike the girl who was desperately trying to stop him, Chong Ryong was enjoying it with twitching lips. She had wondered why this kid revived this wench, but it seemed he did it to torment her again in this way. That skull could be considered the origin of that wench. If it was shattered, she would suffer tremendous pain. Anyway, he's a vicious one. While that was happening, the girl shook off Chong Ryong's hand and tried to rush at Mok Jaeyoung. However, she couldn't shake it off because she was outmatched in grade. Rather, by Mok Jaeyoung's hand, the skull. Crack. Arg. The girl let out a heart-wrenching scream. The pain of having one's living body shattered was hard to describe in words. But here she witnessed a sight that was not only painful but also shocking. Sizzle sizzle. Mok Jaeyoung finally crushed her skull with his hand and put the powder into his mouth, not just holding it. Even Chong Ryong didn't expect this, and her eyes widened. Who would have thought he would put bone powder into his mouth? "Hey!" The girl screamed. Mok Jaeyoung didn't care and rubbed the shattered skull fragments with both palms, crushing them even finer and putting all the remaining powder into his mouth. "You bast." Park. At that moment, something strange happened. The girl's spirit body shook violently as if she was having a seizure. Then a red thread-like thing appeared from the girl's body and connected to Mok Jaeyoung. Seeing this, Chong Ryong was dumbfounded. This guy. He ate the origin of the vengeful spirit and forcibly made it his supreme ruler of gluttony. It was just a simple act, but the result was not simple at all. How could something like this happen? It was unbelievable even after seeing it. On the other hand, Mok Jaeyoung's mouth curled up bitterly as he saw that the attempt he had made on a whim really worked. It worked. If given the chance, he wanted to test it out, to see if his guess was correct. But it really worked. The girl couldn't hide her bewilderment as she looked at the red thread. Having been a vengeful spirit for a long time, she naturally came to know everything without anyone teaching her. So she could immediately tell that this was the thread of a supreme ruler of gluttony, establishing a master-servant relationship. How can this? The girl tried to grab the red thread with a flushed face, but there was no way it could be grasped. Swish swish. This young master. How can this young master become a lowly human's supreme ruler of gluttony? Mok Jaeyoung asked the girl, who was frantically waving her hands. "What's your name?" "Shut up. You bastard, what are you to this young ma?" "What's your name?" The girl, who was about to get fiercely angry, suddenly softened her expression at Mok Jaeyoung's repeated question. Then her lips twitched and she soon spoke to Mok Jaeyoung with a much gentler face. "Skew Soha, master." This one. Chong Ryong was inwardly surprised. Even if they become a supreme ruler of gluttony, vengeful spirits don't readily reveal their own names. The reason was because of the power that names hold. When one becomes a spirit body, they approach the realm of supreme rulers, and then they become bound by their true name. So vengeful spirits don't reveal their names. But as if completely submitting, Even her expression changed and she revealed her true name. Mok Jaeon looked at the girl and said, "It's a good name. Thank you, Master. Soha, can you become my loyal dog?" That is my utmost desire." At Mok Jaeon's words, the girl showed an intense expression as if moved, and Chong Ryong clicked her tongue as if it was unbelievable. This was even more than a demonic beast. In the end, even though she didn't reach it, a green spirit who almost became a blue spirit grade was submitting to this extent. It was a sight of submission almost down to the roots of her mind. Is it the influence of the strengthened death chi? Gugu. It was clearly visible to her ghostly eyes. Mok Jaeon's death chi had become incomparably stronger than before. But even after infusing enough chi to restore this Gyusoha to this extent, it was still overflowing like this. Moreover, she had been feeling strange from earlier, and the chi seemed to be subtly overlapping. So she asked, Your chi is a bit strange. Why does it seem to be overlapping?" Can Chong Ryong see it?" What? A new mnemonic came to my mind anyway. A new mnemonic? The 8 forms of thought destruction. What? She couldn't hide her surprise. In the midst of that, he came up with a new mnemonic for the 8 forms of thought destruction? So Chong Ryong asked, "What mnemonic did you come up with?" At her question, Mok Jaeon gestured to Soha and said, "The myriad phenomena are like an illusion, the acupoints have no extremes, the 2 forms are like a dream, the 5 aggregates are all empty, the myriad phenomena are an illusion, the 5 aggregates are all empty." Hearing this, Chong Ryong's pupils shook. This guy. He realized a mnemonic I didn't know. The reason Chong Ryong was surprised was exactly that. What Mok Jaeon said was a mnemonic she had never known before. Even she, who possessed a natural talent, had only grasped 4 forms in the 8 forms of thought destruction. But this mnemonic was something she didn't know. She asked, hiding her inwardly excited heart. "Ahem. This is a form I haven't mastered. What profound principle does it hold?" I became able to disperse the Danjian into 2 places. What? I could disperse the chi near the Baihui acupoint in the head and near the center close to the heart. At Mok Jaeon's words, she showed an expression of disbelief. Right now, Mok Jaeon wouldn't know what he was talking about. Until they surpass the wall, all martial artists cannot escape the shackles of the lower Danjian. But the moment they gain enlightenment and surpass the wall, they open the middle Danjian. Those who have opened the middle Danjian like this could be said to be extremely few even in the martial world. But this kid, without enlightenment, says that his middle Danjian has opened due to the profound principle of the 8 forms of thought destruction. Chapter 68. Inside a room with walls covered in talismans and numerous ritual instruments, a white-haired Taoist priest who had been meditating with his eyes closed inside a formation of candles arranged in the direction of the 5 elements opened his eyes. Shaking pupils. The sharp-featured white-haired Taoist priest couldn't hide his bewilderment. It can't be. The white-haired Taoist priest, gripped by a bad feeling, got up from his seat. Then he left the room and walked down the corridor. The feeling just now was the backlash that should have returned when the spell he had set up was broken. But that couldn't be. Even if the goo poison was completed, it couldn't have broken this chief's technique. Eventually, the white-haired Taoist priest stood in front of a door. The priest opened the door. The expression of the priest who opened the door stiffened. On the floor of the room was drawn what seemed to be a formation for a barrier, and inside it was a thick jar with a talisman attached and chains tied to it. However, tremble. As if anger had surged, the white-haired old man's beard trembled violently. And for good reason, as the talisman attached to the candle was torn off and the chains were severed. The old man approached closely and grabbed the severed chains with trembling hands. Then he closed his eyes and chanted a spell, connecting the origin to the profound realm, the supreme beings without masters, urgent as commanded. Tremble. The chains shook violently. Just what happened? Show me the reason. Swish. Something was drawn in the mind of the old man with his eyes closed. It was the process of countless vengeful spirits devouring each other and transforming. On the days when the Corpse Blood Valley was conducted, he checked this periodically 2 or 3 times a day to see if there were any problems. Wasn't it just like that until now? But what on earth happened? At that moment, something completely black was seen approaching the goo poison that was being completed. The supreme beings without masters, urgent as commanded. Show me. Just what is it? He needed to know what variable had occurred. As he infused more spell power through the incantation like that, crack. At that moment, blood flowed from the old man's left eye, and the broken chains he was holding completely turned to powder and scattered. The old man momentarily staggered and was pushed back. What was that just now? Something vicious covered in the chi of death intervened with the goo poison that was being completed. It definitely wasn't an oddity in the form of a dead soul like a vengeful spirit. In that case, did a man-eating beast break through the talisman barrier of the cliff and enter? The old man wiped the blood tears flowing down with his sleeve. If it was a man-eating beast that could break the talisman of the cliff and touch a vengeful spirit that had transformed and risen in grade to that extent, even though it wasn't complete, it would surpass a monstrous beast. Could it be that a demonic beast or a devil beast appeared? No. A devil beast was too much. If it had reached that level, he would have noticed it right away no matter how far the distance was. If a devil beast appeared here, even if it was a martial sect, the sacrifice would have been considerable. Gur. But even if it wasn't that level of grade, he couldn't contain his anger. The goo poison that he had been trying to slowly complete over a span of 15 years had turned to foam in an instant. Bang! The old man roughly pushed open the door and left the building, passing through the corridor. Someone was seen kneeling there. It was none other than diviner Zhou Yuigong. As the old man emerged, Zhou Yuigong raised his head with a delighted face. Master, no, Pavilion Master. The sharp-featured white-haired old man. He was in Xiaoke, the master of the primal killing, which was in charge of sorcery consultation under the Heaven and Earth Society. And he was also Zhou Yuigong's master and a sun level, one of only 14 sorcerers who had reached the highest level of sorcery. Excluding the Six Directions Supreme Ruler, who was called the pinnacle among the divine sun-moon technique. He was a skilled practitioner who was unrivaled by anyone in sorcery. Pavilion Master. Are you reporting this to the sect leader? At Zhou Yuigong's question, Pavilion Master in Xiaoke shook his head with a terrifyingly stiff face. At this, Zhou Yuigong couldn't hide his disappointment. Among the talents he had seen so far, that guy was the best. That's why he was trying to get him out of the Corpse Blood Valley no matter what, even by requesting the Pavilion Master. But it wasn't that his mind had changed. While that was happening, in Xiaoke said, "That's not the problem right now." What do you mean by that? A high-grade man-eating beast sprinkled ashes on the fully cooked rice. Don't tell me. This chief's spirit supreme ruler goo poison technique has been broken. Diviner Zhou Yuigong couldn't hide his shock. The spirit supreme ruler goo poison technique was something his master and chief in Xiaoke had devoted himself to for a whole 15 years, wasn't it? How can such a thing happen? No matter how much of a man-eating beast it is, breaking through the chief's barrier and entering. It means it's above a demonic beast. A demonic beast. A man-eating beast that surpasses the grade of a vicious beast and a monstrous beast. Even a monstrous beast requires at least sorcery to deal with, but if it's a demonic beast beyond that, it would be difficult to handle even for a sorcerer who has received the title of Bangwell, depending on the type. Wait a moment, the Cliff Valley where the Spirit Supreme Ruler goo poison technique is being performed. It was adjacent to the Corpse Blood Valley. Even if the Spirit Supreme Ruler goo poison technique wasn't broken, if a demonic beast appeared on that mountain, it was a situation that couldn't be left unchecked. Pavilion Master in Xiaoke clicked his tongue and said, "Immediately prepare talismans and ritual instruments and get ready to go to the Corpse Blood Valley." At his master's order, diviner Zhou Yuigong thought to himself that it was fortunate. Although his master was upset because the Spirit Supreme Ruler goo poison technique was broken, this could be used as a justification to stop the barriers of the Corpse Blood Valley. Mok Jiangun entered reverse cycling to absorb the remaining death chi here. Seeing him like this, the eyes of Gu Soha, who had become his new supreme ruler of gluttony, gleamed with interest. And for good reason, as in Gu Soha's ghostly eyes, Mok Jiangun's chi was not circulating normally but in reverse. Not only that, he was circulating the chi of death, not the chi of yang or life. Is the master really a living human? That had been a question all along anyway. It was a strange thing for a human to accept that tremendous death chi and still be fine like this. Gu Soha glanced to the side. Chang Ryong was sitting leisurely on a large rock, smoking a long pipe. At this, Gu Soha carefully approached and opened her mouth. Ahem. Excuse me. Excuse me? Call me O. As she was about to tell the girl to call her Yerushin, respectful term for an elder, Chong Ryong stared intently at Soha and snorted, saying, Just call me Yoni, older sister. Whether she was a green spirit or whatever, it was quite embarrassing to be called Yerushin by that young wench. Of course, even calling her Yoni had a huge gap in years and grade. However, this what? Are you going to impudently blurt out, this young master again? This one is a man. Yo. If you keep spouting nonsense, I'll just annihilate you whether that guy made you his supreme ruler of gluttony or not. No. This one is. Chong Ryong raised her long pipe with a snap. At this, Yu Soha tightly closed her eyes and raised both hands upward. Although her half-white hair was peculiar, anyone would see her as a girl of about 15. Don't talk nonsense in front of me. If you utter one more word about being a man or whatever, I won't show any mercy. Chong Ryong clicked her tongue and waved her hand as if telling her to scram. In the end, Soha couldn't even ask what she wanted to ask and couldn't regain her pride. At that moment, Mok Jae-eun opened his eyes as if he had finished absorbing all the chi. Phew. Did you absorb everything? Yes. Gathering the remaining chi was quite a lot. Gathering all the death chi remaining on the cliff, he was able to collect at least as much as killing about 50 people. Could be said to be much more efficient than hunting around the entire mountain. The chi has stabilized to some extent. Chong Ryong clicked her tongue inwardly while looking at Mok Jae-eun. He finally made that much death chi his own through reverse cycling. The level of his middle and lower danjian had almost reached the perfection of the peak in terms of internal energy, surpassing it to reach the extreme. It's absurd. The order was completely messed up. He had almost no understanding or enlightenment about chi, so he didn't even know how to handle sword chi or explosive force, but his internal energy level had reached the extreme of the peak. This was also due to the strange profound principle of the 8 forms of thought destruction. It's like having the internal energy of the extreme peak doubled. However, in the case of the middle danjian, since it can only be obtained after surpassing the wall, its potential is also unknown. Right now, even she had difficulty definitively determining Mok Jae-eun's exact level. She was certainly curious, just how high-level experts this guy could handle. While that was happening, Mok Jae-eun asked, How much time has passed? Since the master has been here. If you're asking how much time is left until dawn, there's not even an hour left. At most about 3/4? Interrupting Yu Soha's words, Chong Ryong spoke. At her words, Mok Jae-eun looked up at the night sky. Indeed, the sky that had been completely dark had somehow changed to a pale indigo color. Contrary to the plan, it seemed he had wasted a lot of time here. Of course, even so, it wasn't a loss. He had collected several times more death chi than killing the boys searching for flags, and he had even gained a green spirit with powerful strength. However, there wasn't much time left now. Mok Jae-eun licked his lips. It's unfortunate. What is? I was trying to leave only 7, but 3/4 of an hour is too tight. At Mok Jae-eun's words, Chong Ryong clicked her tongue. Anyway, his ideas were different. Originally, the purpose was to secure more death chi, but now it seemed that it wasn't just that but also to drastically reduce the total number of people. Chong Ryong, who had been clicking her tongue, said, Instead of that, you should find the flag and teammates first. If he was simply looking for a flag, it would be fine, but he had to find the one with the other half of the sword technique mnemonic written on it. If he was unlucky, he might only find flags with the same mnemonics. And he also needed guys who were worth accepting as teammates. So he had to hurry. At that moment, Mok Jae-eun took something out of his bosom. What are you doing when you're busy? I have to insert it again. What Mok Jae-eun took out was none other than the needles of the golden gate lock that he had removed from the acupoints of his spine. If he didn't insert them again, it would arouse suspicion. I can do that for you. Pardon? Whoosh. As soon as the questioning ended, Chong Ryong lightly waved her hand. Then the needles of the golden gate lock on Mok Jae-eun's palm flew and simultaneously pierced the meridian points on his spine. Puck puck puck. Hiss. Inserting the needles was painful, just like removing them. It hurts to insert even one, but inserting them simultaneously like this, even Mok Jae-eun, who had strong endurance for pain, couldn't help but let out a loud breath. Seeing this, Chong Ryong spoke with a satisfied expression. I can do this much for you, although a tool is needed to remove them. But Chong Ryong's gaze turned towards Mok Jaeongun's chest. That was near where his middle danjian was located. Unlike the lower danjian that was cut off and scattered when the meridians were blocked, the middle danjian was still alive. Like that, after quarter an hour, Mok Jaeongun discovered a group that had secured a flag. There were exactly 8 of them, and they seemed to have successfully defended the flag a couple of times, as the corpses of 9 boys were scattered around. A boy who recognized Mok Jaeongun immediately laughed and said upon discovering him, "Hey, where did you sell your teammates and why are you wandering alone?" "Ha ha ha. That's right." At his question, the teammates with him all sneered in unison. They showed this attitude because they were confident that Mok Jaeongun alone couldn't handle them as Dawn was not far away. After laughing together like that, the boy who provoked Mok Jaeongun waved his hands and said, "We're full here, so get lost." "You're full here. Are you deaf?" I said get lost quickly. "Alright. There's only about 2 Ka left until dawn, so I don't know if you can even find a group worth accepting." But, thump. At that moment the boy collapsed in the middle of his speech. Mok Jaeongun was in a posture of having thrown something, and a rock was embedded in the center of the boy's face. He seemed to have died instantly after being hit by it. "Wh, what is this? How is this possible when we can't even use internal energy?" The boys who were the boy's teammates couldn't hide their bewilderment. Who would have imagined that he would kill a teammate just by throwing a mere rock? While that was happening, Mok Jaeongun raised the corners of his mouth and smirked. "Oh dear. A spot opened up in your group. Chapter 69. Killing Valley Vermilion Slaughter Valley. Esoteric Gate, Esoteric Realm Gate." Also, I noticed some terms being mistranslated in Chapter 67. In fact, Gyu So-ha is a green spirit 4th level, whose strength almost reaches to a blue spirit. And as you all know, Chong Ryan is a blue spirit 5th level. To remind everyone about the spirit levels, here's a recap from lowest to highest at this point. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue. There's an empty spot in that garden. The boys were dumbfounded by Mok Jaeongun's mocking words. Who could have predicted that someone would throw a rock and kill a teammate in such an urgent situation? Mok Jaeongun spoke again to the shocked boys. "What will you do?" The boys were at a loss for words at this question. At most, there were only 2 hours left until sunrise. If they were lucky and someone showed up, they could replace the dead boy. But if no one appeared, shit. What should we do? The boys muttered softly. They were angry that a boy who had shared life and death with them had died, but they had to think rationally. They couldn't fully blame him as he too had made what he thought was the right decision. There are still 2 hours left. That's true, but what if no one comes? He's right. Let's just accept him. But do you think that guy will give up? Still, even if it's just this once, we have a sense of loyalty to this guy who's been with us. At that moment they saw Mok Jaeongun picking up another rock. He wasn't just picking up one but grabbing as many as he could hold. The boy who was speaking swallowed dryly and said, "Let's accept him. That bastard picked up rocks. That crazy bastard." If they didn't accept him, he looked ready to throw rocks at the other boys too. In the end, they had no choice but to accept Mok Jaeongun as a teammate. Mok Jaeongun smiled brightly as if nothing had happened and said, "Thanks everyone. You're all so kind. Son of a bitch." They all cursed Mok Jaeongun inwardly. If only he hadn't shown up now, they could have gotten a result satisfactory to everyone. They had learned what teamwork was by uniting as one. But now they had to begrudgingly accept this crazy bastard in order to pass the gate. Swoosh. At that moment, Mok Jaeongun placed his hand on the flagpole. One boy suppressed his emotions as much as possible and said, "Be careful. Even with 2 hours left, the flag must remain intact." "I know. If you know, then don't touch it." Despite the boy's words, Mok Jaeongun didn't stop touching the flag. The boy was angry but couldn't say anything more. Seeing the monstrous strength Mok Jaeongun displayed in the steel bead competition and how he almost pierced someone's face with a rock just now, the boy didn't have the confidence to pick a fight. Let's see what happens once the Golden Gate Lock are released. According to the information, the Golden Gate Lock would be removed once they got past the initial part of the gate. When that happened, he was determined to deal with this guy one way or another. As he was thinking this, Mok Jaeongun opened his mouth. "By the way, did you find any other flags besides this one?" "Other flags?" The boy shook his head at Mok Jaeongun's question. They had been lucky. After finding this flag, 2 teams had attacked them, but they had defended it to the end. We never lost and protected this flag. The boy spoke with pride in his voice. At this, Mok Jae-young sighed. Phew. What's with that sigh? You lost not only your flag but also your teammates. One boy finally couldn't hold back and confronted Mok Jae-young about this. Then Mok Jae-young shook his head and approached the boy. The boy flinched for a moment but then stood his ground. What are you trying to do? Are you in a bad mood? But it's the truth. And although we had no choice but to accept you to pass the gate, fighting is unnecessary at least. Smack. Crack. At that moment the boy's neck was twisted. Without finishing his words, the boy collapsed with his life extinguished. The other boys were stunned. This crazy bastard, is he really insane? No matter what, this is too much. The sun will rise soon, so what will we do if you kill a teammate like this? Are you in your right mind? Thwack. Crack. At that moment, Mok Jae-young's hand struck the neck of the shouting boy. With the sound of muscles and bones snapping, the boy's neck was bent at an angle as he let out a dying groan and passed away. Having already killed 2, the boys couldn't hide their consternation. He's lost it. What the is he doing? Did he really have no intention of passing the gate? As they were thinking this, Mok Jae-young reached out towards another one of them. Smack. Eek. One boy was caught, unable to dodge in time. The other boys' minds went blank. The only thought in their heads was that in order to survive, they had to run away no matter what. So without helping the captured boy, they fled. Mok Jae-young threw a rock with all his might at one of the fleeing boys. Thwack. Erk. The flying rock pierced through the back of the head of one of the running boys. Naturally, the boy who was hit in the head died and collapsed on the spot. Thud. Mok Jae-young picked up another rock, but the remaining 3 had already scattered and entered the bushes. Getting all of them will be tough. Then, just deal with 2 of them for me. With those words, Mok Jae-young threw a rock with full force towards the bushes. From within the bushes, a scream of anguish was heard, followed by the sound of someone collapsing. It seemed he had hit his mark. The captured boy, trembling with fear, said, "Why are you doing this? You know what will happen if we can't pass the gate. If you kill teammates like this, you guys won't be able to pass anyway." What? I said you won't pass. What kind of nonsense is that? If only you hadn't done this. You were so focused on protecting it that you didn't properly examine the flag. What are you? Smack. Mok Jae-young grabbed the confused boy's head with both hands. The boy begged for his life. A spare. Crack. But Mok Jae-young snapped his neck without changing his expression. Then, grabbing the pole of the flag stuck in the ground, he crumpled it with one hand and muttered, "Crunch. Things have gotten a bit pressing." There was only 1 hour left. In that time he had to find a different type of flag. The characters engraved on this flag were identical to the ones Mok Jae-young had memorized. Same time halfway up the mountain. With not much time left until sunrise, 2 teams were facing off in a battle. Huff, huff. Rough breathing could be heard from all around as everyone seemed exhausted. Peculiarly, this confrontation was particularly different from other typical flag defense battles. That's because both sides had flags. One side had firmly planted their flag into the blocked mountain wall and formed a semicircular formation to protect it, while the other side had 2 people guarding their flag as they carried it around, with the remaining 6 targeting the semicircular formation. This isn't good. On the defending side were Mo Hwarang of the Demon Fire Hall and Mok Yucheon, the youngest of the Yun Mok Sword Manor. Mo Hwarang, who had set out to find a new flag, somehow ended up joining Mok Yucheon's team and had been defending the flag until now. Seeing how bright the sky had gotten, there wasn't much time left until sunrise. If they were lucky and someone showed up, they could replace the dead boy. But if no one came, shit. Mok Yucheon cursed inwardly as he glared at the opposing team. The shirtless boy wielding a stone axe with unique patterns all over his body was Yeom-jae of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave. That bastard. Mok Yucheon glared at him and cursed inwardly. He didn't understand why they were targeting the flag. Because one of the boys guarding the flag had a broken flagpole tucked into his belt. That meant they already found both types, so why are they doing this? It was completely incomprehensible. If they kept fighting like this and even one teammate was taken out, they would fail the gate. Taking on such a risk just to reduce their numbers by one seemed like a foolish decision. Mok Yucheon whispered quietly to the boys next to him and Mo Harang. Let's hold out just a little longer. At those words the boys and Mo Harang nodded. Once the sun rose, this kind of behavior would become meaningless. However, Yeom Jie of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave faction sneered at their strategy. You think you can just hold out? That's what they thought. It was a miscalculation. They had a surefire strategy. It had already been proven effective by wiping out 3 teams using this giant wolf monster. Yeom Jie raised his left hand. Wah wah wah. Yah wah. The 2 boys guarding the flag suddenly began screaming loudly. Not only them but the boys who were fighting also raised their voices and shouted even louder. What the? Crazy. Why are they suddenly doing that? The defending side couldn't understand why they were acting this way. They were screaming way too loudly. Since they were halfway up the mountain, their shouts echoed through the surroundings. What kind of ploy is this? Mo Harang of the Demon Fire Hall glared at Yeom Jie of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave, who was smirking. As soon as that scrawny bastard raised his hand, they started doing this. There had to be an ulterior motive behind it. In the end, she decided she couldn't just leave them be. Rather than simply focusing on defending the flag, she thought it would be better to kill 1 or 2 of them. That would make them back off. She gripped her sharply honed stone dagger tightly and said in a low voice, "Don't any of you step outside the semicircular formation no matter what." What you can't mean? Mok Yucheon urgently tried to dissuade her, but swoosh. Mo Harang had already dashed towards one of the boys. Although her energy points were blocked, everyone knew of her incredible dagger skills that defied imagination for a woman. So when she made her move, they stepped back to maintain distance. This was the moment. I've been waiting for this. Yeom Jie of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave didn't miss this opening and charged at the boys forming the semicircular formation. Mo Harang changed directions in response. I knew it. She had also anticipated this. She was the strongest one among them. She figured someone like Yeom Jie would try to lure her away before targeting the semicircular formation. Whoosh. Mo Harang threw her sharply honed stone dagger at Yeom Ga's back as he was running. Then one of the boys from Yeom Ga's team threw himself to block it. Stab. Irk. The stone dagger lodged between the boy's left chest and shoulder. But thanks to this, Yeom Jie was able to swing his stone axe down at the head of one of the boys in the semicircular formation without hindrance. No. At that moment, Mok Yucheon slid and aimed for Yeom Ga's legs. Yeom Jie chuckled at this and threw his body to the side, hurling the stone axe. Huh. Yeom Ga's real target wasn't the boys. This is bad. It was none other than the flag they were protecting. The hurled stone axe spun as it flew towards the flagpole. It was sheer luck. The stone axe grazed the flagpole and bounced off. Although it got a little nicked, thankfully the flagpole didn't break because it was only grazed. Seeing this, the boys felt relieved. Phew. If that had snapped, they would have had to switch from defending the flag to trying to take the flag from them at all costs. I'll kill him. Swoosh. Tap tap tap. Mo Harang of the Demon Fire Hall dashed towards Yeom Jie. Compared to the other guys, this one in particular had to die now. He was the most troublesome, using his wits and not hesitating to resort to any means necessary. Demon Fire Hall girl. Are you saying you want to take me on? Yeom Jie, who had rolled and gotten back up after throwing the axe, took a fighting stance as Mo Harang charged at him. Putting aside the fact that she was a girl, she was one of the opponents he most wanted to face off against. Right at that moment. Thump. Thump. A strange sound was heard from somewhere. The 2 people who were charging at each other stopped in their tracks. The boys from the 2 sides who had been confronting and fighting also stopped. Thud. Thud. The sound of the ground shaking. It felt like something massive was approaching. The day had brightened considerably, so they could see a giant shadow forming between the bushes. Then the boys on Yeom Ga's side moved in unison as if they had been waiting for this. They ran towards the 2 boys who had the flag as if taking shelter. Rustle, rustle. At that moment, a massive creature appeared from behind them. Everyone's faces stiffened. Slurp. The creature that appeared, drooling profusely. It had blue fur on its head, pointed ears and sharp hook-shaped claws. Its appearance resembled a wolf, but its size. What is that? What the is this? It looked nearly 3 times larger than an ordinary wolf. It was a monster that seemed like it could swallow even an ox whole in one bite, emanating a tremendous pressure. Seeing this, Mok Yucheon broke out in a cold sweat. It got even bigger. While wandering the mountain and struggling, he had encountered that monster. He was lucky to survive it, but compared to when he saw it then, it had gotten much bigger. What has happened in the meantime? That's the monster wolf. Another boy who had been on the same team as Mok Yucheon spoke in a voice filled with fear. Two of their teammates had fallen victim to that thing, so they knew better than anyone how dangerous it was. Tap tap tap. At that moment, Yeomju ran and stuck close to where their flag was. Seeing this, the boys forming the semicircular formation on Mo Harang's side had puzzled expressions. They were closer to that monster than Mo Harang's team. In this situation where they should abandon the flag and flee for their lives, they were sticking close to the flag as if determined to defend it at all costs. What's going on? As they were finding this strange, the unthinkable happened. Swoosh. The monster wolf, which they thought would attack Yeomga's team first, avoided them and moved. And then, it approached not Mo Harang and the boys forming the semicircular formation in front of the mountain wall, but Mok Yucheon and the boys? What the? Why? They couldn't fathom the reason. Why was that monster passing them by and targeting Mo Harang's team? Was it discriminating between people? The flag. But there was one person who roughly guessed the reason. It was none other than Mo Harang. Mo Harang found it odd that despite the appearance of such a monster, they weren't on guard and instead stuck close to their flag. So on a hunch she shouted, "Stick close to the flag." At that moment, the monster wolf charged at them who were backing up towards the flag, at a tremendous speed that didn't match its massive body. Eek. Run. Everyone frantically threw themselves aside as the monster wolf charged, regardless of whether they were close to the flag or not. However, one boy ended up getting trampled by the monster wolf. Thud. Ack. Blood spewed from the trampled boy's mouth. Not only was the weight of that giant body a factor, but the hook-shaped claws dug into his back and tore his internal organs. Shit. Seeing this, Mok Yucheon twisted his body, stopping mid-escape. His instincts were telling his legs to run away, but that boy had accepted him as a teammate and they had shared life and death together. That's why he couldn't just abandon him and flee. Smack. Mok Yucheon picked up a rock from the ground and threw it at the monster's face. Thwack. The monster wolf, hit in the face with the rock, jerked its head around. Queek. Queek. It let out a pig-like squeal, and the moment they heard it, goosebumps shot up all over their bodies. The monster wolf stared directly at Mok Yucheon. Shit. Had he done something foolish? Should he have just run away instead? Right as he was thinking this. Swoosh. At that moment, someone leaped high, landed on the monster wolf's back, climbed up to its neck, and tried to drive a sharply honed stone dagger into its eye. It was none other than Mo Harang. Hover. Swipe. Before Mo Harang's dagger could pierce its eye, the monster wolf violently swiped at the area above its head with the opposite front paw. She tried to jump off and dodge, but it grazed her back. Flesh was torn from her back where it was caught by the hook-shaped claws, and blood instantly soaked her back. And then, thud thud thud, she tumbled several times. Harang. After tumbling, Mo Harang staggered and tried to get up. But having suffered such an injury with her energy points sealed and no protection, it was nearly impossible for her to easily get back on her feet. Thud. One of her knees sank to the ground. Seeing this, Yeomga's teammates huddled around their flag and laughed mockingly, feeling elated. Was this what they called borrowed murder? They had already turned 3 teams into food for that monster wolf using this method. Don't feel too resentful, Demon Fire Hall wench. Yeomjie of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave curled his lips into a cruel smile. Here there was no such thing as being fair and square. The true winner was the one who survived till the end by any means necessary and eliminated their rivals. Growl growl. The monster wolf walked towards her, bearing its fangs. It wasn't a simple beast. As if intending to fill her with terror, this monster wolf was slowly taking one step at a time. Huff, huff. The sun will rise soon. Mo Harang bit her lower lip as she looked up at the sky. With only about an hour left, was she going to lose her life like this without passing the gate? Her vision was blurring from the blood loss from her back. Thud. 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 The monster wolf approached right in front of her. Mok Yucheon and another boy could be seen shouting and desperately trying to distract it, but it was too late. This monster wolf's next prey was her. Do I look tasty to you? Grit. Emo Harang clenched her teeth and tried to stand up. Even if she died, she thought she had to stab this monster wolf's flesh at least once so she wouldn't die feeling resentful. Right at that moment, as if it had been waiting, the monster wolf tried to throw itself at her. Swoosh. Come. That's when it happened. Smack. The monster wolf's body suddenly stopped mid-lunge. Rather than stopping of its own will, it was as if it was bound by something, with its two front paws lifted and fixed in place. She had no idea what was going on. What? What's happening to it? As everyone looked on in bewilderment, something bizarre appeared in Emo Harang's blurring vision. Numerous chains had burst out from the ground and were restraining the monster wolf's entire body. Clang. Clang. Quiek. The monster wolf howled and tried to break free, but the chains constricted it even more tightly, preventing it from moving. What has happened were these chains? As she was wondering this, a voice was heard from somewhere. What a relief. To think everything I need is gathered here. At that voice, she turned her head. There she saw someone walking over with the corners of his mouth turned up. That guy is... It was none other than Mok Jae-young. But right next to him, what was that transparent yet blurry figure? Shudder. It was a girl with chains wrapped around her entire body and half her hair white. The moment their eyes met, goosebumps shot up all over Emo Harang's body. Chapter 70. The giant monster wolf, frozen in a posture as if about to leap at Emo Harang of the Demon Fire Hall. Everyone's eyes widened at this bizarre sight. Then a voice was heard from within the bushes. What a relief. To think everything I need is gathered here. Everyone's gaze turned in that direction. That guy. The person emerging from the bushes was none other than Mok Jae-young. Because he had left such a strong impression with his brutal tactics in the steel bead competition, everyone recognized him at a glance. As I thought he was alive. Mok Yucheon looked at Mok Jae-young and let out a sigh of relief without realizing it. Although he disliked the guy, he didn't wish for him to die in a place like this deep down. So he felt relieved, but the timing of his appearance was bad. You idiot. What happened to your teammates and why did you show up alone? They were supposed to find the flag and have all 8 members waiting until sunrise. But of all times he showed up alone leisurely when that monster wolf was rampaging here. His luck was truly rotten. However, now was not the time to worry about that guy. Tap 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 tap. Mok Yucheon ran towards Emo Harang. He didn't know why that monster wolf was acting like this, but now was the chance to save her. At that moment Yeongjie of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave shouted. Hey, you crazy monster wolf. What are you doing right now? Yeongjie didn't care whether Mok Jae-young appeared or not. He didn't know why the monster wolf that had been moving well according to their strategy suddenly couldn't move in that posture. But he hoped it would hurry up and kill them. That's why he was shouting. Quiek. However, contrary to his wishes, the monster wolf howled but couldn't budge an inch. Its fur that had been standing up as if restrained by something was pressed down. What is it doing? As he was getting frustrated. Swoosh. Mok Yucheon slid and pushed Emo Harang, who was right in front of the monster wolf, out of the way. And he caught her shoulders as she fell forward. Get a grip. Mok Yucheon urged Emo Harang, who had a blank expression. Then she spoke. Do you see this? See what? She was gesturing towards the monster wolf with her eyes. Of course he could see it. He didn't know why it was acting like this, but it couldn't move at all. But then incomprehensible words came out of her mouth. It's bound by chains. Mok Yucheon furrowed his brows. What has happened was she talking about? What chains? Why was she saying such nonsense? Mok Yucheon bit his lip as he felt the wetness on her back. It seemed she was seeing things due to excessive blood loss and faintness. Emo Harang. Get a grip. We've endured until now, but if you collapse here it's death. Still conscious. Then walk. Mok Yucheon hoisted her shoulders and urged her on. Then she looked in Mok Jae-young's direction with an expression that said she couldn't understand at all. Was she really seeing things because of severe blood loss? But something felt off. Who was that half-white-haired girl with a blurry form next to him that didn't seem human? As she was wondering this, she saw the half-white-haired girl moving her lips. Seeing this, her pupils trembled. As someone from the Demon Fire Hall, once known as the Four Great Assassins, she had learned lip reading. Lip reading was a technique to read the other person's conversation through the movements of the lips, face, and tongue. She could see it. That person seems to be able to see me? At those words, a chill ran down Emo Harang's spine for a moment. Then she saw Mok Jaeon also muttering while looking at her with an intrigued expression. Oh, is that so? Emo Harang became confused. Was she really seeing things due to blood loss? But why were that blurry existence and Mok Jaeon conversing? Right then, queek. At the tremendous howl that spread like a shockwave, Emo Harang Mok Yucheon no, all the boys covered their ears in pain. What is that sound? It was a howl no different from a lion's roar imbued with inner force. And with the howl, the ground the monster wolf was standing on shook nearly 5 jang and sank in. Rumble, rumble. At that moment, the frozen monster wolf moved. Yes, that's how it should be. Yom Jae of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave, covering his ears, inwardly cheered. In any case, since they were within the protection range of this flag, it didn't matter to them, but the other guys didn't have that advantage. So they had to die here. Shit. A rough sound escaped from Mok Yucheon, who was supporting her shoulders. He thought now was the chance, but it seemed he was wrong. Right at that moment, clang 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 clang. Dozens of chains burst out, not from right below but from around 5 zhang away, once again restraining the body of the monster wolf, no, the demon wolf. Queek. This time perhaps because the restraining force was too strong. Thud. The chains tangled and pulled, smashing the demon wolf's head into the ground. Huh. To the baffled Mok Yucheon, Emo Harang said, "You really can't see it? What are you talking about?" At a time like this. Before he could even finish his words, Mok Jaeon had already approached the demon wolf, pressed against the ground, unable to move its chin, no, its entire body. "I should repay you for targeting what's mine, right?" With those words, he grabbed the demon wolf's upper teeth with both hands, pressed the inside of its mouth with his foot, and Ryayip. He tore its palate. The demon wolf, whose mouth was forcibly opened, thrashed its body and tried to twist its head as if in pain, but the chain's restraining force was too strong for it to move. Thanks to that, rip rip rip. Queek. Its mouth was completely torn off. The demon wolf's wailing as it shed bloody tears also stopped as if nothing had happened once the upper part of its head was completely ripped off. Mok Yucheon, who was closest to this scene, and everyone else were at a loss for words. Who could have imagined that the monster wolf that had devoured so many boys would end up like this in an instant? This bastard, what the... Mok Yucheon was the most shocked. Was this really the same cowardly guy he knew? Mok Jaeon tossed aside the torn upper snout and head of the demon wolf. Thud. There was a thud sound, perhaps due to the weight of the bones. Phew. The surroundings fell into silence at the sight of Mok Jaeon drenched in the demon wolf's blood that spurted out as its snout was torn in two. What the... was with this guy? Why did this monster wolf become unable to move and die like this as soon as this bastard appeared? Moreover, what was that strength to tear its mouth off when inner force was sealed and unusable? Everyone couldn't hide their confusion. However, there was one person who quickly snapped out of it. Shit. It was Yom Jae of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave. He too was equally shocked by this unbelievable outcome. But how this situation came to be wasn't important. The sun would rise soon. Rip rip rip. Queek. His mouth was completely torn off. The demon wolf's wailing as it shed bloody tears also stopped as if nothing had happened once the upper part of its head was completely ripped off. Mok Yucheon, who was closest to this scene, and everyone else were at a loss for words. Who could have imagined that the monster wolf that had devoured so many boys would end up like this in an instant? This bastard, what the... Mok Yucheon was the most shocked. Was this really the same cowardly guy he knew? Mok Jaeon tossed aside the torn upper snout and head of the demon wolf. Thud. There was a thud sound, perhaps due to the weight of the bones. Phew. The surroundings fell into silence at the sight of Mok Jaeon drenched in the demon wolf's blood that spurted out as its snout was torn in two. What the... was with this guy? Why did this monster wolf become unable to move and die like this as soon as this bastard appeared? Moreover, what was that strength to tear its mouth off when inner force was sealed and unusable? Everyone couldn't hide their confusion. However, there was one person who quickly snapped out of it. Shit. It was Yom Jae of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave. He too was equally shocked by this unbelievable outcome. But how this situation came to be wasn't important. The sun would rise soon. Bind them all. As soon as Mok Jaeon muttered softly, clang 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 clang, chains rose from the ground, instantly restraining the bodies of everyone present. Clink. What is this? Something is restraining my body? The restrained boys couldn't hide their consternation. Although invisible, everyone could feel something like a rope, no cold chains binding them. They had no idea what was going on. Arg. Yeomjie of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave tried to break free with all his might. However, with his inner force sealed in the first place, and no matter how much he had trained his outer force, his strength couldn't surpass that of the monstrous demon wolf. Naturally, this attempt was nothing more than a waste of energy. Thud. Trying to force it, his body tilted forward and his knees sank to the ground. Yeomga's face flushed with humiliation. You son of a bitch, what the did you do? As this was happening, Mok Jaeon approached the flag right in front of the mountain wall. The eyes of the boys who had been defending it but fled trembled. Could it be that he was targeting their flag? As they were thinking this, Mok Jaeon examined the flagpole and then, this one too. He muttered and then broke the flagpole without any hesitation. Snap. Why you bastard? The boys screamed as if wailing. Although they had abandoned the flag and fled to escape the monster wolf, if that was gone, they would be eliminated from this gate. But they didn't expect Mok Jaeon to damage it like that. Grit. You son of a bitch. Mok Yucheon also couldn't contain his anger and called out to Mok Jaeon. He wanted to run over and punch him in the face right away. But his body was restrained by something invisible and he couldn't move an inch. This won't do either. Mok Jaeon clicked his tongue and this time approached where Yeomjie was. At this, Yeomjie shouted with bulging veins in his neck. Are you going to break this one too? In response to that question, Mok Jaeon chuckled and shook his head. Then he examined the flagpole and frowned. Don't tell me this one too. Although the people around couldn't hear it, Mok Jaeon could hear Chong Ryong's voice in his ears. As she suspected, the characters were identical this time as well. Mok Jaeon licked his lips as if troubled. What a coincidence. He didn't expect all three flags he found to have the same characters he had memorized. Now the sun was truly about to rise at any moment. Even if he hurried, there wasn't enough time to secure a flag. What will you do? Command that Soha girl to search for flags nearby right now. At those words, Mok Jaeon was about to nod, but then thought of another method. Come to think of it, wouldn't it be better to confirm this first? Mok Jaeon was about to ask Yeomjie and his teammates, who were bound by Soha's chains and unable to move. By any chance? Before he could even start his question, someone shouted at that moment. I'll tell you the remaining characters. So let's make a deal. At those words, Mok Jaeon turned his head towards the one who shouted. The one who shouted was none other than Mo Harang of the Demon Fire Hall. Although her face was so pale, she was somehow still breathing and mustering her remaining strength. Mok Jaeon looked at her with intrigue. It seems you figured it out. I checked it twice. Even she had thought Mok Jaeon breaking their flag they were defending was simply to forcefully eliminate them from the gate. However, seeing him frown while examining the flag of Yeomga's team, she realized it. Mok Jaeon was searching for a different type of flag. Characters. Yeomjie also belatedly realized this fact at her words. So he hurriedly shouted at Mok Jaeon. Let's make a deal. A deal. Yeah. I also know the other characters and we even have an intact flag and teammates here. It looks like you don't have teammates, but if you join us you can pass too. Yeomjie thought this was fortunate. At first he was angry because his strategy was ruined because of this guy. But in the end this bastard played the role of that monster wolf for them. He broke their flag for them, so if they just accepted this guy the Demon Fire Hall bunch would naturally be eliminated. At that moment one of the boys said in a fluster. Wait a minute. We're all fine. If we accept that guy. Shut up. Yeomjie reprimanded the boy. Then he said to Mok Jaeon. I'll take care of one guy myself, so will you make the deal or not? You need teammates, flag and characters anyway, don't you? He probably wouldn't be able to refuse anyway. It was more rational for them to make such a clear proposal. But then Mok Jaeon reached for the waist of one of the boys. Grab. It was the broken flagpole. The characters are here. At this, Yeomjae was momentarily taken aback. Carrying around the pole with the other set of characters written on it had backfired. A few of them hadn't memorized it all, so he didn't dispose of it, but who knew it would turn out like this? Yeomjae hurriedly said, That's ours too. So you'll make a deal with us, right? Huh. Who? This is mine. Mok Jae-eun nonchalantly said while waving the flag he had taken. Seeing this, veins bulged on Yeomga's forehead. You. And this flag here is also mine. Mok Jae-eun lifted the flag with one hand. At this, the boy's eyes widened. Even with their inner force sealed, it took two of them to barely lift it, but he lifted it so easily. Mok Jae-eun moved away from them, holding the flag with a satisfied expression. Stop. I said it's mine. At Mok Jae-eun's mockery, Yeomjae got angry but barely suppressed it and said, Why you still need teammates? That's right. Mok Jae-eun nodded as if convinced. Then this time Mok Yucheon, who was supporting Mo Harang of the Demon Fire Hall, shouted, Mok Jae, don't trust that cowardly and weak bastard. They'll stab you in the back. If that's the case, accept us as teammates instead. He shouted on her behalf as Mo Harang's condition worsened. In fact, he didn't want to ask Mok Jae-eun due to his pride, but there was no other way. Once the sun rose, everything would be over. To survive, he had to abandon his pride. At that moment, Yeomjae also shouted, What bullshit are you spouting? Everything this guy collected was what we defended. What have you bastards done to demand to be accepted? You have the nerve to run your mouth after doing such cowardly things, even using a monster like that without any skill? Mok Jae-eun. Ignore what that guy says and... Hey, no, did you say Mok Jae-eun? If you help me this time, I will definitely repay the favor. There are still gates left, so being indebted to me, someone from Vermilion Slaughter Cave, shouldn't be bad. Don't listen to him. Although we may be half-brothers. Shut up, you bastard. Then at some point, everyone started shouting at Mok Jae-eun, who was holding the flag, pleading to be accepted as his teammates. Their voices mixed together, making it confusing to tell who was who. Right at that moment. Clap clap. Mok Jae-eun clapped his hands. At this, everyone's gaze turned to Mok Jae-eun. Since he was the one holding their lifeline here, they had no choice but to focus on him. As they looked at him, Mok Jae-eun opened his mouth. This is quite a dilemma. With everyone wanting to join me like this, I'd like to accept all of you as teammates if I could, but rules are rules. Gulp. The boys swallowed dryly. It seemed he had made a decision on who to accept as teammates. Mok Yucheon stared intently at Mok Jae-eun. No matter how much they disliked each other, brothers were still brothers. He inwardly hoped that in the end he would accept him as a teammate. But then, in a situation like this, it seems unfair to prioritize and look after certain individuals. So let's do this instead. Mok Jae-eun glanced to the side and nodded his head. Pi body. The bodies of the restrained boys moved. Mok Jae-eun smiled brightly at them and said, Kill each other. What? I'll accept the 7 of you who survive as my teammates. In an instant, everyone's expressions stiffened. Chapter 72. I'll accept the 7 of you who survive as my teammates. The boys, who had been tensely waiting to see who Mok Jae-eun would choose as his teammates, were dumbfounded for a moment by the words that came out of his mouth. He was telling them to kill each other when the sun was about to rise? To this bastard? Seriously? From their perspective, they couldn't help but be furious. In the first place, they had stayed up all night until now to defend the flag. But he suddenly appeared and was toying with the situation as if pulling out an embedded stone. No, it was even worse than that. Are you seriously? Mok Yucheon, who had momentarily flared up like the others and tried to express his anger to Mok Jae-eun. However, the moment he saw Mok Jae-eun's face, he became speechless. That face with the corners of his mouth raised up to his ears was enjoying this situation. It was far from the feeling of a joke. It was a face that seemed to genuinely wish for them to kill each other. Shudder. With that realization, goosebumps spread from Mok Yucheon's spine to his entire body. Rather than questioning whether this guy was really that Mok Jae-eun, it felt like he was looking at an existence filled with genuine evil. At that moment, Mok Jae-eun opened his mouth. You have too much leisure. The sun seems like it will rise soon. The horizon in the eastern sky that Mok Jae-eun was pointing at with his hand was dyed in crimson. Everyone's expressions turned grave. It really seemed like the sun would rise soon. Damn it. Do we really have to do as that bastard says? Right at that moment, one boy couldn't contain his anger and finally charged at Mok Jae-eun, shouting, "You son of a bitch." The stone axe that Yeom-jae of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave had thrown was gripped in the boy's hand. The boy, whose eyes had gone wild, didn't care about the sun rising or not. It was an impulsive action, feeling like he had to smash Mok Jae-eun's head with this stone axe to vent his anger. Hover. Clang. Ha. The boy's body froze, restrained by chains just 3 steps away from Mok Jae-eun. This is an alien sensation, as if his whole body was bound. Although nothing was visible, it was incomprehensible. At that moment, the green soul Gyu-soha, who was reaching out her hand towards the boy, spoke in a chilling voice. "Master, shall I kill him?" Mok Jae-eun shook his head at this. It wouldn't be bad for Gyu-soha to kill him, but there was no need to reveal that the spirit devourer had reached a level capable of killing someone yet. Thud thud thud. "I'll let me go. This isn't right." The boy, restrained by Gyu-soha's chains, seemed to have regained his senses, trembling with a pale face. At this, Mok Jae-eun snatched the stone axe the boy was holding and raised it as if he would strike him down at any moment. The boy pleaded in terror. I was wrong. I'll do as you say." "You heated up like an iron pot and cooled down quickly. Please spare me." "Then you should have targeted someone other than me." With those words, Mok Jae-eun brought the stone axe down on the boy's head. Splat. Irk. A grotesque scream flowed from the mouth of the boy, whose head was crushed. The expressions of the other boys watching this scene were a sight to behold. They too had killed other boys to survive from the first gate until now, but that was ultimately murder for a purpose. However, Mok Jae-eun's actions had a different nature. See, crazy bastard. It seemed like he was enjoying the act of killing itself. A prime example was smiling so brightly while looking at the boy dying brutally with his head crushed, which was completely out of the ordinary. Overwhelmed by the pressure, the boys no longer had any thoughts of trying to do something to Mok Jae-eun. That was completely out of their league. With the situation turning out like this, the first one to move was smack, crack, irk. Yeom-jae of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave snapped the neck of a boy right next to him. "You." The boys who followed Yeom-jae couldn't hide their consternation at the betrayal. Then Yeom-jae spoke in an irritated tone. "Fuck. Are you going to play friendship games after coming this far? If you bastards want to live too, it's best to do as that guy says." Irk. There was no other way to deny it. Charging at that bastard Mok Jae-eun would be of no use, so to survive now, they had to kill each other until only 7 remained, as he said. Swoosh swoosh. "Sorry." Gasp. "Why you?" The other boys also strangled and ambushed the boys next to them. The boys who were even a little slow became prey. This wasn't just limited to Yeom-ga's side. Arg. The boys who had been scattered and defending the flag in a semicircular formation also pounced on the boys next to them, throwing caution to the wind. Swoosh. Die. "Why you too?" "Shut up. Is this the time to argue about that?" It was hard to admit, but Yeom-jae was right. We entered this competition killing each other anyway, so what friendship at this point? They had to survive. If they died, cooperation or friendship was of no use. They had to make it into the 7 before the sun rose. Mok Yucheon, who was supporting Mo Harang's shoulders, bit his lip at this sight. In an instant, everything felt futile. Although they weren't righteous individuals, the teammates he had shared life and death with for 3 hours to survive together had suddenly turned on each other to kill. They were the ones who had said they would stick together until the end just 2 hours ago. That's why Mok Yucheon, who had thought that people were people no matter where they were, felt that way. Hover. Die. Die. Ayaha. Please spare me. I helped you too. So what? They were killing each other as if nothing had happened. Everyone's eyes had changed. Grip. Mok Yucheon's tattered nails from the steel bead competition dug into his palm. All of this was because of that guy. Because of that bastard, the place where they had competed by joining forces had suddenly turned into a bloody pandemonium. He had turned everyone into beasts with only the instincts of the strong preying on the weak, not humans. He wanted to knock that guy down if he could. Hover. Energy points. His energy points were sealed, and it seemed like Mok Jae-eun was using some strange technique. Recalling what happened at Yun Moksword Manor, It was probably some kind of illusion technique. Damn it. He didn't want to be dragged around by that guy, but there was no other way. For a moment, Mok Yucheon unconsciously glanced at Mo Hwarang, whose shoulders he was supporting. Then, as if realizing his mistake, he shook his head. Yo! For a fleeting moment, he had unconsciously thought about killing her. What had become of him? As he was thinking this, he saw a boy approaching with murderous eyes. Huff, huff. Mosang. Mok Yucheon called his name. He was one of the three who had survived with him from the beginning. At some point, Mosang's hand gripped one of the 2 stone daggers that Mo Hwarang had. Grit. Mok Yucheon clenched his teeth. Having already stained his hands with a lot of blood on the way here, he knew well that there was no way to persuade Mosang in this situation. That's why he was so furious at this situation. At that moment, Mosang swept his surroundings while exhaling rough breaths. Then he opened his mouth. Yucheon. Cut off Hwarang's breath. What? Mok Yucheon's voice rose. Thanks to Mo Hwarang, they had escaped several crises, so he didn't expect Mosang to tell him to kill her without any hesitation. Moreover, didn't she get injured while trying to help her teammates? No. Let's leave Hwarang and fight each other instead. Huff, huff, stop talking nonsense and kill her. I said no. At Mok Yucheon's words, Mosang shouted, You son of a bitch. She won't survive with her injuries anyway. In that case, even if we have to kill her, you and I should survive. With a scream close to wailing, Mok Yucheon muttered with difficulty. I know. Damn it, I know. But he couldn't do it. He could understand fighting each other and killing someone, but he couldn't cut off the breath of this girl who was in a dazed state. Then I'll kill her. With those words, Mosang charged forward. At this, Mok Yucheon hurriedly put down Mo Hwarang and blocked Mosang. The guy had already killed another boy, so he had no hesitation in killing the injured Mo Hwarang to survive. Swoosh swoosh. Although his energy points were sealed, Mok Yucheon was called a genius. He threw his body towards the charging Mosang, grabbed his wrist with the seizing hand technique and twisted it back. Crack. Let go of that. Mok Yucheon urged Mosang to let go of the dagger gripped in his hand. If you don't let go, your arm will break. Arg. Mosang. Calm down. Let's join forces and deal with the guys from the other team instead. Before he could finish his words, Mosang said with a sneer. Arg. What are you going to do when the sun is rising? And even if it's not me, it's already too late. At those words, Mok Yucheon raised his head. And there he saw a boy charging towards Mo Hwarang who was lying face down. It was also a boy who had been on the same team. The boy charging with an apologetic expression had a rock in his hand, as if he was going to shatter Mo Hwarang's head. Stop. Mok Yucheon shouted urgently. But it was already too late. Nu-uh. The boy's crude stone was just a step away from crushing Mo Hwarang's head. Right at that moment. Clang. The moment the stone was about to touch, the boy's body froze in that state. Tetuses. The alien sensation of something restraining his body. It was that same thing as before. Thud. Ha, ha. With the crisis averted at the last second, Mok Yucheon sat on the ground and exhaled rough breaths as if hyperventilating. After being extremely tense, his breathing became uncontrollable as the tension suddenly dissipated. If he had been just a little late, Mo Hwarang would have died. At that moment, the boy whose movements were restrained shouted as if possessed. What are you doing? Didn't you say you'd give us a chance by fighting each other? He wasn't spouting nonsense about sparing the injured or women, right? As he was thinking this, a sound was heard. Clap, clap, clap. He could move his head, so when he looked in that direction, he saw Mok Jaeyoung clapping his hands. Wondering why he was doing that, Mok Jaeyoung said with a bright smile. Congratulations. What? The spots are all filled. At those words, the boy swallowed and looked around. Mok Yucheon and Mosang, Mo Hwarang and himself who tried to kill her, and Yong Jie of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave and 2 of his cronies had survived. Ah. Forgetting how many of them had survived while trying to kill each other to reduce their numbers, they finally realized that only 7 remained. Human hearts were truly cunning. Ha! We survived. All of them who had been trying to kill each other until now had brightened expressions along with sighs of relief. They were engulfed in the exhilaration that came from surviving the competition. That exhilaration was so great that they completely forgot the fact that they had engaged in a massacre orchestrated by Mok Jae-eun. Interesting. The corners of Mok Jae-eun's mouth twitched upwards. He felt a small amusement at the sight of them. At that moment the sun was rising. The mountains of Corpse Blood Valley, which had been shaded in darkness, slowly brightened under the crimson sunlight slowly poking its head out. And with that, swish 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 swish. Before long, as if they had been waiting, warriors wearing red belts appeared, displaying their Lightfoot skills. The warriors who appeared looked around, checking the flags and the survivors. Then their expressions stiffened as they discovered something. It was because of the giant monster wolf, no, the monstrous beast demon wolf, lying dead with its snout torn off. Who on earth? This monstrous beast wasn't released to be killed. It was released for them to survive against.